And welcome everyone. It's so nice to see so many faces here. Let's begin with a prayer. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Holy and gracious God, for your presence in this place this morning, we thank you, we bless you, we worship you. Thank you for the gift of music, for the gift of community in which to share it. Bless our time together. Bring us a little laughter, a little joy, and a little thinking and contemplation. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. So, like I said, welcome. Just to give you a little trajectory of our time together, we're going to start, Bret and I are going to introduce ourselves and tell you a little bit about us. And then we're going to tell you a little bit about the piece. And then we have a participatory conversational time. Well, then we're going to hear the piece again, right? Am I doing this right?
Yeah,
okay.
Close enough.
Then we're going to hear the piece. Our fabulous Bethel Choir section leaders are here to sing it for us again, just so that we can dwell on it a little bit more. And then we're going to have some conversation time together about the piece, responding to it, thinking about it, that sort of thing. And then we're going to break for lunch. And our hope is that we just kind of continue the conversation at lunch. And that we will not necessarily convene back in the space afterwards, but we'll just see what's organic, okay? So, without further ado, let's hear from this gentleman here, Bret Hesla, fabulous singer-songwriter from Minneapolis, and my friend. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, Bret.
Okay, I'm not used to doing this kind of, this style here, but I'm really happy to be here. I just want to say that I've come from a household where this is important to try to be careful, so I know it's weird. I'm presenting and I put this on and off. Anyway, really happy to be here. So let's see, where does it come from for me? I've been writing music for a long time, and I write music for people to sing together. That's what I do. I write music for people in church settings, people in community singing, in non-church settings, schools, whatever. And my interest is in what we can do singing together. And a lot of that becomes church connected, and my church writing is really grounded in concern for justice and a concern for creation, inclusion, these kind of progressive themes that are the themes of my life. Let's see, what I want to tell you about. What I do when I write music, I kind of wonder, where does this come from? I try to write songs that I'm not hearing that I wish we were singing. You know what I mean? Yeah. You go, and that's not a rap against the church. It's sort of everywhere. You go there, so we're mired in this horrendous environmental catastrophe. And so often I think, God, we should be singing this, or why isn't there a song about this? Not only a song, a reading, or whatever. I'm trying to bring forward for myself what I think is important for us to be paying attention to in our world. And that's my vision. That's what I think. So some things I write might not connect for you, but that's what I'm writing. What's missing, And so a little later this morning, I'll be interested to hear what you think. What's missing as far as what could we be singing about? And I know singing is just one piece of it, but that's what I'm interested in. So in this case, 30 in 19, I don't want to do the math, in about 1989, I did a series of songs and songwriting with a group called the Land Stewardship Project for sort of music of the land, collecting songs and hymns that address issues about care of creation. This was a soil conservation group. I did a bunch of traveling in school groups and different things, and just get people singing. So that's from that, moving on to other issues. Then in about 19, I'm kind of going to get to sort of where did this come from for me. Anyway, about 19, all through the teens, I was working on sort of other issues in addition to environmental. Anyway, and then people kept saying, we're having a, Creation Sunday. You can think of anything to sing besides For the Beauty of the Earth.
Yeah, right.
Not that there's anything, that's a wonderful song, but really? That's the only one we can, we should be thinking about 8,000 songs with 8,000 topics. So I worked with a friend of mine, Richard, to kind of start to pour some water into that void, into that hole, and try to help fill that up a little bit in the way that we can. So from that, that's sort of where this has come from for me. So anyway, we're talking and talking. If you have any questions, go ahead and fire away. Originally I have a degree in plant ecology, so I was a biology major in high school. I've never had a music class, but I grew up in a singing family. So we sang in church, probably like many of you. We sang in church, and we sang in school, we sang at camp, we sang on the playground, and that's kind of still what I do. So, yeah.
I just want to thank you so much for not only making beautiful music, but music that we can sing. People that don't have voices like me, that there's a range that I don't have to be able to hit high C. Yeah, some of the church music is so high and it's beautiful, but I can't sing it, so this is wonderful.
Right, and that's, thank you for saying that. That's really a constraint that I put in my head when I'm writing music is, can people actually sing this, can you follow it, because some things are fun to sing that aren't really singable, or, it takes so long to learn, but that's really important because us singing together is the power that we're tapping into. So. Yeah.
Your text is not exactly the way the prayer reads in Pope Francis's text. How do you think you interpreted Laudato Si? Maybe the whole scene of it or whatever. What were you trying to capture?
Yep, and can you hold that question for a little bit? I'm going to pass it off to Zach to have him just chat a little bit about who he is and where he's coming from. And then we'll get to the thing itself, and I'm happy to talk about that for sure. And then I want to say with Zach, I met Zach through Martha, our pastor Martha, who was, I think you were at the seminary together or something anyway. She said, this guy is fabulous, everything musician and a good friend of mine, and he's over here. And then my brother went to the church where you were formerly, and what he said about Zach, I'm going to toss it over to Zach so he can talk about himself. What he said about Zach was, Zach is a five-tool player, a five-tool musician. Like in baseball, do you know baseball, they call a five-tool player is somebody who can, hit for power, whatever, they hit for average, is fast, they're good with the glove, and they got a good personality or something. Anyway, Zach, so he said, Zach, he can write music, he can direct the choir, he's fabulous at that, he knows how to design worship services, he's got the personalities to work with groups, and there was another tool, probably 8 more. Anyway, you're really lucky to have this guy. You're really lucky to have this guy. So Zach, maybe you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for sharing, Bret. It's so nice to have you here and so nice to share the worship space with you. A little bit about me. I've been here a little over a year. I came to Bethel last August, and I was living in Minneapolis, St. Paul for 12 years before that. Had a few church jobs up there, all of them in ELCA Lutheran churches. And the last one that I was at, University Lutheran Church of Hope, kind of marks the official beginning of my life as a composer. Before that point, so I was in my early 20s at that point. Before that point, I just kind of improvised, and I wrote a few things here and there, mostly for use in worship, like little refrains or whatever. But at that church, they had, in the past, had really fabulous composers as their musicians. And so there was a spirit that lived there, a kind of energy that invited that creative compositional gift. And so it was a great space there to be able to write something and try it out. I had a fabulous choir there too. And the congregation was open to that. And like I said, they expected it. They wanted to do fresh things. And so that kind of marks the beginning of my life as a composer. Long before then, I started as a musician, as a church musician. I started playing piano by ear when I was 7 years old. And I started on piano. I took piano lessons all the way through kind of coming of age. And I started pipe organ when I was a freshman in high school. And it was the same year that I started playing as a church musician. And so I haven't had more than a Sunday off since I was 13, basically. Yeah, and so really the whole context of church is where I'm most alive, I guess, in terms of my vocational life. And yeah, I have interests, as some of you may know, in all sorts of different areas of church life and worship that go far beyond music, that reach into the realms of the visual, spatial setup kind of stuff. I just love all of it, and I love the space, the sanctuary space that we share together and we encounter. That we encounter God in, and all the different ways that God can show up. I was trying to think. I was joking with Bret earlier that it's funny that this context is the thing I get the most nervous for, like talking about myself without a piano or an organ in front of me to be able to just talk for me.
Do you want to hold the guitar while you're talking?
Yeah, but. Yeah, I was thinking this morning about the Holy Spirit, and that the Holy Spirit is kind of what the creative process is about. We heard that fabulous Genesis reading this morning, that it's the God's breath, God's Spirit that goes out and creates all of these things. It's that creative energy. And I think that that's the part of the Trinity that the arts and that music and artists kind of live inside of. And so that's really exciting for me. And I mention that because it's through that kind of communion with the Holy Spirit that all of these different things catch my interest. The visual, the way that we're gathered together, the way that we sit in the room, the way that we sing, and all these different things. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. And did I cover all of the things that are important to cover?
You forgot to thank some people in your early life, but yeah, like your kindergarten teacher, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And before we move on, I just want to say a really special thank you to Bethel Choir for preparing this piece. It was a really interesting challenge for us to start out the year with such a big project, because we had to record the video that you'll all see and look at later. We had to record that in September, which was only 3 weeks after we started the year. So we worked really hard, they worked really hard, and I really just want to make sure to honor and celebrate what they brought to today. Yeah. Oh, and the man behind the camera is back there. Yes, that's Dan Poe. He was the videographer for the whole project, and it was in part his vision that is brought to life in that video. It's largely his vision in terms of the visuals and how everything fits together. So there's all sorts of different layers of art going on in that video and in today. So yeah, let's move on.
So I'd like to thank the Bethel Foundation for making possible
absolutely.
the
Yes.
resources to do this.
Yes, the day today and the festivities that we have in front of us are largely in part underwritten by a grant from the Bethel Foundation. So yes, always thanking the source of the funding to get us here and get us all gathered. So thank you. We'll talk about the piece now.
Yeah, that's great.
Would you like to start?
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, really the piece started with Bret. He was drawn to this text, and it's just to lay out specifically how we worked together on it. Bret set the text to music, so the vocal parts are his. He wrote them. And then he brought the piece to me and was asking for an accompaniment. We had written like one other thing together where I wrote an accompaniment, a piano part to something he wrote. And so this was just kind of a continuation of that collaboration. And I wrote out the piano part and the interludes and how everything kind of weaves together.
Yep. Well, I'll say a little bit. I started saying, 4 or 5 years ago when I had a little project going with my friend Richard. So looking around for things to sing about, I've got a whole notebook of dissatisfactions and missing quotes and stuff. And I came across this prayer from the Pope. The Pope did this whole encyclical, this whole big thing. I'm not a Catholic, but I was really impressed by his courage, or his willingness to stand up and say, this is a gigantic problem. It's a problem for everybody. And he really linked environmental destruction with the way the poor are treated in our world, the way we treat each other who aren't as wealthy. So he really connected social justice and environmental justice as kind of a one whole piece. That really struck me. Anyway, so I was moved by that, and then Richard and I, when we got together, I said, well, here, I'm going to take this prayer and cut it apart with the scissors into 6 pieces, and then you take these and I'll take those, and just write a song with that little part. So we did that, and some of those we sang this morning. And then we switched, and we all ended up, a million. Speaking of writing, you have to have permission to write a lot to get some that you want to keep, right? Yeah. So it's really good to encourage people in your midst to be doing what they're doing and doing a lot of it, because if you write 100 songs, there's about 5 that are kind of pretty decent. And out of those 5, there's maybe 2 that you really like, So you got to make a lot of kind of, I don't want to say crummy stuff, but just a lot of attempts, right? So anyway, so Richard and I did that, I passed that whole thing around. Then I kept thinking, well, this is kind of really great as a whole thing, obviously the prayer. But I couldn't imagine, almost everything I write is for a congregation, for groups, and I couldn't imagine a congregation singing this much text that's in the Pope's prayer. I just couldn't quite imagine it, because I was singing sort of like the Lord's Prayer. There's the Our Father which art in heaven. That's beautiful, and you're not going to sing that with a congregation. It's just a big long journey over the landscape of the world. So I thought, okay, great, I'll write this thing for 4 parts, and we'll sing it as a choral piece. And I've sung in choirs all my life, but I don't really know a lot about writing. I know I can write 4 parts, but this kind of a longer piece, it has to kind of stick together. So I wrote all these pieces, and then I was thinking, I got to call somebody who can kind of make this work. So and my brother Todd, who's in this choir, he said, well, Zach is kind of the guy. So I called Zach and said, you're a choir guy. I'm not really a choir guy, and you're a piano guy. Can you just sort of take this and make it into something that choirs would sing, or give it the scaffolding underneath and the beauty, and kind of tie all the pieces together. So I threw it over to Zach, said, here you go. And then some time went by, and some sort of, how's it going? And I haven't got to it yet, but I mean to, in bubble, I'm thinking, should I be looking for somebody else to do this, or is this guy really going to do it? But I also knew over here, no, this is the right person, or, it's going to be great. And what's my hurry? It took me 4 years to kick it over there. So anyway, and then one day Zach said, hey, I got something going. And we kind of ping-ponged a little bit, and it was in some changes. You made some changes here and there in the vocal parts, not a ton, but a few. And then we got to, so he's kind of playing through it, and then he goes, I really think this last part it's a little too low. I think it should go to E flat, kind of inside baseball talk here. And I thought, again, bubble, good luck with that. Sure, go ahead and give it a try. So Zach made this beautiful segue into this last part that brings it up and gives it this glorious, in my mind. Anyway, so that was kind of our interaction. So maybe you talk a little bit.
Yeah. I'm thinking about one of the first times we met, Bret brought his guitar to church and brought a portfolio of his songs, and he wanted to share. I can't remember if it was in tandem with this project.
Oh, I think you were
no,
doing
a
thing on
first thing
evening
we did
stuff,
together.
darkness and stuff.
Right. And so, I'm just trying to explain I think there's a kind of sacred or Holy Spirit connection between Bret's work and my work, or Bret's heart and my heart. We have a similar understanding of a certain aspect of God, I think. The word tenderness was kind of rolling for me this morning. It appears in the Pope's prayer. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. And there's a couple other songs we sang this morning that express that sensibility of tenderness. And Bret's music, just like you were saying, is super approachable. It's easy to sing, it's fun to sing, and there's just something about your music and something about you as a person that just pulls out creativity in me, at least. And so writing this piano part for his music was easy once I got to it. and that process, it kind of comments on the artistic process, at least for me, the process of inspiration and waiting for inspiration. You have something in the back of your mind and you're like, okay, I need to get to this, I want to get to this. But the opportunity to sit down and do it doesn't necessarily present itself in an organic way until suddenly it does. People talk about the muse or the artist's muse or whatever, or having writer's block. It's like those kinds of things. You wait for the inspiration, and when it strikes, it just kind of pours out. At least that's how it is for me. Is that how it is for you? No? Love it. So there's a bit of a compliment going on there, and yeah, so once what Bret brought to me was so well thought out, and so kind of through the arc of it was there, and so the piano part just kind of happened. And I wanted to include, or I shouldn't say I wanted to in that I brought this intention to composing it, but the two tunes, All Creatures of Our God and King, which we sang this morning, and For the Beauty of the Earth, LOL, you just mentioned that one. So those two tunes are, I would say, the most common, in the church hymn vocabulary, the most common what tunes I think of when I think of creation hymns, right? I think many of you would come up with maybe those two things as well. So in the process of weaving all of it together, I wanted to include those two hymns, or those two hymns just kind of came into the space. And so you'll hear those tunes quoted. For the Beauty of the Earth happens over the second section, and then it comes back at the end of the third or the fourth section. We're going to pass out scores later if you want to dig into them, and we can kind of point things out for you. And then the da-da-da-da-da-da-dum happens as part of the interlude when we move into the light, the journey towards your infinite light. And it kind of opens up with that tune, because that tune has it marches right up the scale and just kind of opens up. So there were those kind of anchor points of wanting to provide the listener or the singer with something new, which was Bret's music, and then something familiar at the same time to kind of, I don't know, just to make it a party, make it a medley of cool, different things. And then the tenderness piece, I wanted to, especially in the beginning, we have the you for whom there is no adequate name, you're present in the whole universe. It has this kind of mysterious quality. It's that first day of creation, out of nothingness, things started forming. So from mystery into you embrace with your tenderness all that exists. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. The concept of tenderness in music, I think it's just so, music reaches us in a tender way, in a tender place. We could all agree about that, right? It just gets to the heart real quick. And so kind of going in that direction musically was where a lot of the accompaniment came from. And using the instrument of the piano and making big kind of cozy chords that you can just like swim in, this kind of tender, beautiful space. Yeah, so that's kind of some concrete things, some really abstract things. And that's a little bit about where the piece came from and how it came to fruition. And should we sing it?
Yeah, I think you should sing it.
Yeah, so we have our fabulous section leaders from Bethel Choir. This is Jersey, she's brand new this week. And then Madison is our alto, Noah is our tenor, and Augie is our bass.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So they're going to sing, and then afterwards, while you're listening, maybe just be thinking of, what you're noticing, or questions, or I wonder about this, or just, because then we're hoping you can kind of carry the ball and chat a little bit. Yeah.
Sisters and brothers, harming no one, O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth so precious in your eyes. Journey toward Lord, your infinite light.
Good job. Thank you. Yeah. Woo-hoo. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, that's just gorgeous. Thank you. That's beautiful.
You guys can sit. Go ahead.
She said to us, will you just sing it again, the whole thing? Right?
That's what the YouTube video is for.
So now we'll do a little ping pong between chatting a little bit at your tables and then letting us know what you were talking about. Just maybe with the people around you at your table, just for a minute or two, just say what struck you about the piece this time when you listened to it. What's one thing that really struck you or something you noticed? Just one thing. Just chat a little bit and then we'll listen to what that was. So maybe, and this is open to the singers too, just let's hear a little bit about what you talked about. What was one thing that struck you when you listened to it at your table or some comment that came out?
The harmonization within the piece.
The harmonizations.
You know, as a choir member, you never get to hear it.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a gift that we got. There's many of us in here. That's a big gift.
Yeah, it was
Now,
so
what does it
wonderful.
really sound like when it's given to us?
Yep. Right, so the blend, hearing the blend for the first time if you're in the choir or just in general. So what else? What's something that struck you, a little particular? The feeling of really
Very soothing.
Soothing, yep.
Well, and you know, also having the text of the actual prayer and how closely the lyrics of the piece.
Yep, looking at the text, how closely it follows the original that the Pope said. But not exactly, I know that. But yeah. Anything else that's, we'll just get a few things and I'll repeat them.
I maybe could talk to the table I was with, the enunciation of all the words.
Yeah, the choir, the singers made it really easy to understand. The enunciation was great. Yep. Anything else? Could be about how it was sung, what it means, or anything else that you noticed? Maybe, yeah.
They all have such beautiful voices.
These singers have all such beautiful voices. I think we all agree on that big time. Well, yes. Woohoo! Yep.
I want to respond real quick to the comment about being able to hear the words. I think that is Bret's gift shining through, in that you write so often for music to be sung and just kind of sung by the congregation. It's accessible. I think the fact that you set the text means that the words can be heard really well by the listener. And so I just wanted to reinforce that, because so often, I mean, big choral pieces, sometimes the whole thing goes by and you're like, didn't understand a word, didn't really get it. This is the opposite of that, which I think is really cool. And I think that's Bret's gift showing through, yeah.
It's also your gift in fussing with us about pronunciation.
Oh, yes. Yes. Fussing about pronunciation as the director. Yes, I do plenty of that. Yeah. Yeah, this table over here.
Listening again to the music, the way it starts so softly and builds up to this great crescendo of thankfulness, but also that the music that you glued, you know, to put all the pieces as very disparate parts, these different prayers and petitions, to put it all together and make it cohesive. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
To be able to watch the score as it's being performed is really wonderful, because in addition to the melody, to see what it took to put all that together, all that underneath it, it makes it much more meaningful to see what it took to make this happen.
Yeah, again.
Being able to understand the meaning of the whole piece.
Right, understanding the meaning of the whole thing. Let's spend 2 more minutes talking at your table. I'm curious about your feelings. What feelings came up for you when you were listening to it? And it could have been, we've heard some, but you know, is there some particular part where you felt such and such? You know, it doesn't have to be great. It could be, I don't know, you know, or whatever. So what feelings were you getting and where? Just take a minute and think about that. And the singers will be able to speak to that from singing too.
So feedback. What were some feelings you felt? Some specific anchor points in the piece?
Your words absolutely perfect. It just feels exactly what that.
The word tenderness, the feeling of tenderness. Yeah. Yeah.
Before, when you were talking about how the Lord's Prayer is this like big long thing that people can't really sing together, I feel like this music though it had that similar feeling to it, but yet it was singing, you know, as a group together.
Prayerful, maybe? Is that?
Yeah, definitely an emotional connection.
And the flow, I think the flowing of the accompaniment as well.
Just a disclaimer, I wasn't dissing that piece. I was just saying, I was just saying it didn't feel, too necessarily singable for a congregation.
Brett, did you hear it ever in a choir piece, or did you hear it? How did you?
This one here?
Yeah.
No, it's the first. Well, I heard it one other time when you did a run through, but I haven't heard a whole choir sing it that's practiced up. It was just at the end, I'll tell you how I felt, and I want to hear how you felt, and I'll tell you how I felt.
Others?
Can I say something?
Sure.
I'm sorry, but I actually may cry when I say this, because when John Kutzbach and Gisela and David and I were sitting around our fire at our cabin, and we had just been to Baraboo to see the cranes, and we had taken this walk around the lake, and it was evening, and we said, you know, we just feel God in all that we have seen today, the Holy Spirit. And for me to sit here 5 years later, and this to me is that you finally captured exactly what we were feeling when we started caring for creation. So this is the epitome of that experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I don't know if Sigrid noticed, or any of you saw at the very end of the video, the music video. But when you watch it, watch right to the very end. Watch through the credits. Because there's a dedication to Gisela and John Kutzbach.
Yeah, a couple other feelings, shares. Let's start back here.
Feelings I picked up right away was that touched art was the one where people look and gain at their own at the expense of the poor and the expense of the earth. We're glad that was brought out and touched our hearts like conviction. Yeah, we must be thoughtful.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Well, what impressed me is the fact that the absence of fear, which is used as a tool by most of the people involved in your whatever. If I see one more person pushed in front of a subway, I've seen enough. And the I believe in God is the antidote to fear. And it's and also I believe in the marketplace. So while I don't know, when you can get 4 sophisticated university singers to seem to enjoy the music and be so pleased with what it is, you've achieved a level of a combination of things too that makes it very, very good.
Yeah, I think that's a really, I'm really respond to what you say about the rhetoric of fear as it plays into the topic of the climate crisis, because overwhelmingly that is, if you really get down to it, the bedrock that we have to grapple with is what do we do? What is going to happen? There's a lot of fear. And I love that you said the antidote word, because I think that this tenderness piece, this beauty, vulnerability, those types of things are the antidote to that pull that fear has. And that kind of journeying toward the light is journeying towards God, toward love, towards faith, right? So, yeah.
Well, I know that we're supposed to be done at 11:30. And I didn't want to blow off your question or your observation earlier about the text. And a few places where I didn't take it exactly verbatim, but I adjusted it. Especially, I don't know what you're thinking about in the very opening line. I think the Pope said, all-powerful God, if I'm remembering right. And yeah, this is a long answer. This is going to be a long answer, but I'm always looking for other images for the divine. Besides the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, the Lord, besides all that stuff, because I think it really matters. And it matters for us to hear other images for what the Spirit might be like besides kind of a human up there, for taking care of this whole creation. And it's, it might be, so I'm looking for feminine images. I'm looking for all sorts of other images because I want to lift those up again, because that's what I want to hear. I want to imagine the Spirit being way bigger than we can imagine. That doesn't make sense. So therefore, I thought, well, right off the bat, I'm just going to, it came to my mind to say, you, for whom there is no adequate name. And let you fill that in for yourself. And for some people, for my mom, it would be, the Heavenly Father, maybe. But that's not what it is for me. And I kind of wanted to honor all of us where we're at, and also maybe where we're being invited into is a bigger understanding of the divine. So I put that in there. I did send it to the Vatican and said, here's what we're going to print. Not for permission, but, permission to adapt and blah, blah, blah. And they were totally fine with it. So they didn't have a problem with it. But they didn't, those aren't the Pope's words. So that's why the credits don't say the text is by the Pope. It's based on all that stuff by the Pope with some adaptations of by me. Because I can't put those words into that person's mouth. But anyway, so all the way through, my little detector is always, do I really like this or do I want to say something different? And since I'm writing the song and I'm only alive for a short amount of time, I'm going to say what I want to say and I think needs to be said. Yeah. And people can decide where that works for them. So anyway, did that answer a little bit of that?
I just want to say something different, really, that you did send this back to the church. I think that's one. I think that the prayers are at the end, and I would urge people to let them sort of draw you back into the text of Laudato Si, because it is really a very moving document in itself. And
you're talking about the whole encyclical. Yes, I agree.
Very available on Google, and it's 87 pages long. I can't admit I haven't read it all, but I've read into it, and even if you read in 10 pages of it, it is inspiring and instructive, and the Pope kind of lays it all out what he's feeling, and it's not exactly comfortable for all of us, but he's really looking at those people who, as we have our earth changing, all those people who are suffering in the wake of it. And I think with the large Christian African congregations and in Latin American congregations and third world South congregations, I think he's thinking very much about that. And that's what they're talking about in Egypt now, and I think it's very instructive to revisit that.
Yeah, so if this piece can invite us all to look at that more deeply and be informed by that or moved by that. I agree. When I read that thing here, you ever have this where you're hearing somebody talk in public or you're reading something, you think, oh yeah, finally somebody's saying this with a microphone, you know. The Pope is using his microphone and really laying out this environmental disaster. And you just think, oh, you know, great. And we all need to do it in our own kitchens too, but it's nice to have somebody with that presence to do it too. So anyway, that was one of my feelings. And
Did
I'm
you have
looking
another
to-
feeling that you wanted to share?
Oh, I've got all,
Did
yeah,
you
I have
share?
lots of feelings that
Okay.
come through.
Okay.
But it's not only about mine. I'm happy to hear what it's about,
Yeah.
what your feelings are,
Yeah.
because I think they matter.
So, welcome back to part 2. So glad you're here. We are going to do similar kind of like around the table conversations about, we have like 3 topic areas that we'd like to cover. So yeah, how was lunch? Good. It was fabulous, wasn't it? 3 soup choices. 3. Yeah, so thinking back, picture the singers here, picture hearing the piece in this space, kind of re-invoking those feelings and thinking in that manner. Why do you think this piece was written? Talk about it with your folks at your table. What do you think? Why was the piece written?
I think that somebody is telling us we have a wonderful creation and we need to take care of it. That's somebody up there.
Now, can people hear each other? Or should we be repeating on the? It's okay. Sorry? So we'll do a little repeating of what people say in case you can't hear it? Yeah, yeah. So your comment was that someone is telling us, God is basically inspiring us to pay attention to the disaster, or however you said it, yeah, yeah.
Well, the Pope stood up in a...
Well, go ahead. Why don't you go ahead, you first.
Stood up in a pretty dramatic way, put himself out there on the limb, made himself a target for lots of deniers and also a hero to other large numbers of people. And it has sparked a whole Laudato Si movement. And what you've done here is just an example of spreading that word in a more localized area. And the more of us who know about it, the more likely action is going to come.
Yep, so just to repeat, you said the Pope, I'm sorry about popping the piece here, really went out on a limb to sound the alarm or the call to action, and took some risks to make this sort of proclamation, this whole piece that he did, and it has inspired action, including this thing that we did. It's one small part of it, and what you're all doing here is, he didn't invent the environmental movement either, but that has really helped prod a lot of Christians to say, wait a minute, we can't just be floating along. Okay, so I'm just trying to repeat what you said. We could pass the mic around too, I suppose would be one way to go.
Others, yeah.
I don't know what inspired Bret, but this document that the Pope wrote is likely to get lost to most people, right? We're digging in 87 pages or whatever it is. But if you make it a popular tune, it's something we'll carry with us in places like this and everywhere else, all kinds of places.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the songwriter's opportunity is to try to find that and to, because his comment was everybody isn't going to read the 87-page, and so even though it's great and we're all overloaded with great stuff in many ways, so trying to find an angle, that was certainly one of my motivations.
Yeah. Music sticks with us. It's something to, you hear the studies about long into dementia, you retain tunes that you learned as a child. Like that, it beats with right alongside the heart. It's like tempo or something. So yeah, it's not to be overstated, the importance that music has in helping us connect to things, to each other, to concepts that are challenging and beyond our grasp in some ways. Yeah, others, yeah.
Bret, was your interest in this, does it go back to 2015 when the Pope issued this encyclica? When your interest in this idea, does it go back to 2015?
No, you mean like in the earth, caring for the earth or whatever? No, it goes, yeah, no, it's goes back a lot farther for me. I remember when I was a kid, I mean, it started really early for me. My dad was really into conservation, reading and thinking and talking about saving water when in the 60s and driving cars or not. I mean, I really was marinated in a lot of that sort of awareness. So that's part of my story. And then when I was in college, I was a biology major. And in 1977, the guy who was my advisor, am I giving you too much answer here? Said, I was an ecology major, and he went to a conference in Michigan in 1977 with biologists from all over the world. And the conference was on the rising level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And the conference was all agreed that it's a big problem. Everybody who was there, and there was no question about that. They weren't quite sure. Some people's models were predicting that it would mean the Earth would get warmer, and some people's models were predicting the Earth would get colder. But they all agreed there was a big disaster looming based on human-caused carbon, blah blah blah. So that I've been paying attention to it for a long time and worried about it for sure.
I'm thinking about 2015. Isn't that about the time when there was a resurgence in interest in this country of, maybe the Native Americans had it right in their care of creation because they were looking generations ahead. Isn't it the seven that they plan? Anything they do will affect 7 generations out. But we are coming to discover that how they took care of their natural resources far outstrips what we've been doing, and now we're learning from them.
Yeah, absolutely, yep. I agree with that. So we're learning to pay attention to native wisdom of native cultures, and as far as taking care of the earth, just to repeat that. Any other thoughts about why maybe the piece was written?
Had good resources, you two, plus Todd, and is Todd around here? He keeps walking around over there. Anyway, the trifecta of the three of you, plus then the support of the Bethel Foundation and just having a choir to be able to see if we can deal with it. And then the congregation receptive to it, so that's a good reason why it was done, and it was a good thing.
Yeah, a huge amount of what I noticed coming in, a huge amount of sort of, what's the word, kind of not serendipity, but things working together. Symbiotic, this committee and this foundation and the choir and all, that kind of support. It's a great sort of model for how we can move our culture, our societies forward by each of the different walks and the various skills that everybody has kind of coming together to make something happen like this movement you've got going here at this church. Super cool to watch from the outside.
I've been thinking about the concept of hope, and kind of going back to what Paul was saying in the earlier talk about fear, and what we're doing here, talking about something that's difficult to comprehend and approach in the form of singing. There's some sort of, and it kind of goes along with what you said about how music, it has the inroad with us to be able to, and it has staying power. There's something for me about why was this piece written, or why did we do this, that, and I'm not going to be able to articulate it, but I'm thinking about the word hope. And I heard something this summer. I sang as a part of a choir called Together in Hope. And we were over in Norway. And I went to a church service and I heard a sermon. Do you ever do this where you randomly hear a sermon and it's like the best sermon you ever heard and it sticks with you forever? Okay. So the preacher talked about God hopes in us, which profoundly impacted me. The idea that I, as an individual, or that we, as a group, are God's hope, and what that means, and what power that holds, and what responsibility that holds. It introduced me to a different understanding of God, that in creating, that it's an extension of, it's a manifestation of hope. And so I think that's why we write music, maybe, or why I create music. It's somehow a manifestation of a hope I have, or it's. Does this make sense? It's, yeah, that just comes to mind, that there's dread and fear and guilt that comes along with the whole concept of what we're dealing with when we look around us, and how, as people of faith, to be hopeful. So anyway.
Yeah, makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For me, part of the hope around here is combining Bethel Horizons, which I've been a part of since the church bought the property in the late 60s, as a way to bring children to know something about nature, to value that, and so forth. And it's something which is still ongoing, but I've been a part of it. To me, that's a very important aspect of it. We've done music camps out there as well. So this just adds to it and brings that message forward.
Yeah, and that plays into the concept of thinking forward 7 generations, or thinking ahead in a hopeful way, instead of a what did we leave for our grandchildren. But yeah. Anyone else on that topic of conversation? No? Let's see, what do you think this piece, this message, means for our life as a congregation? What do you think that this piece, this message, means for our life as a congregation? Yeah, Todd.
Well, I'll offer a hope, and that is that in bringing this to the congregation, it will be a starting point for some folk who have not been terribly tuned in to this as an issue of our faith in action. One of the things we really wanted to do in planning both this and next week's event was to get beyond the group like we had at 10:30, who would typically come to our Sunday morning educational forums, whether it's for Caring for Creation or Act Jam, the social justice group, and get something in front of the whole congregation, and have it, as it was done so beautifully this morning, an integral part of the worship service, so that we see this as part of our faith. So that's my hope, that will take root and lead to growth and action.
Yeah, the image that popped up for me in response to your question was, I saw a picture of a door, an open door. I have no idea where it's going to lead, but that's the image. I think this is a beautiful open door that you've created.
An open door, that's fabulous. Yeah, through which we can all step. I think there's power in the whole, just as Todd was saying, and gives us a kind of a go team direction. Go through the door. Others? Yeah.
What Todd just said reminds me of an incident that happened in a church that I belonged to a very long time in Northern Virginia. I was leading the adult education program there, and we had a program that talked about these kinds of environmental needs. A man who was a pillar of the congregation and had been for a very long time said, I have always cared about these things, but I thought it was because it was my civic duty. I had no clue that it was my moral responsibility, that it was my Christian responsibility. And I was shocked to hear that, but I'm not shocked anymore because there are so many people who seem to share that attitude. But hopefully, examples like we have here, through Caring for Creation and through what happened just this morning and next week, there will be a lot more people who are enlightened as to what realms of their faith it speaks to.
Yeah.
I often look at singing hymns as a wonderful way to pray. And I'm thinking that singing about caring for creation in some way, can keep reminding us, can be a prayer for us.
Yes.
We need to do
Love
what
that.
we need.
Connoted.
My mom, I don't know where she got this, but she said, if you want to know what people believe, if you walk into a church and want to know what they believe, listen to what they're singing.
Yeah.
Which then becomes kind of an urgent, as a musician or a song chooser, it becomes like, wait a minute, are we going to always only sing, interesting for me, what are we going to sing? What's it going to say? And again, that's not the only thing we're doing as a congregation, but from that lens, are we just going to sing things that were written 200 years ago that were really wonderful? But this is our moment. And what's happening now that we can give to ourselves and to our children? And if we're not singing about that, what do we believe? So I agree with you.
Yeah.
I have a thought about, I'll get the microphone.
Yeah.
Thank you. When we were singing this what stood out to me and my heart started to pound when we got to this part that says, bring healing to our lives that we may protect the world and not prey upon it. I can only think of Ukraine and Russia and how we are, in that circumstances, are not living to what this speaks to, but we are preying upon. And what a disaster that is, and how sad that is for me and these words were just so perfect for what we would like to do and want to promote, but it's not happening, and I don't know how to spread the word better than what we're doing now. But those were important words to me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So, how do you word this?
Which one?
What should we be
Show me.
singing about?
Okay, yeah.
That we aren't.
Right.
So,
so I told you, sorry,
No.
we haven't got this completely smoothed over. But if I could come back once a month for about a year, I think we could really tighten this up. So I said, what I'm doing as a writer and as a citizen is I'm listening for what I wish we were singing, what I think is missing, and some of what you're talking about. So I want to throw that back to you, and at your tables, I'm hoping you, will you please talk together about what do you think we should be singing about in our church, in Bethel Church, related to climate change, but maybe it's something else too. What could we be singing about that we're not? What are we missing in our hymn book or in our song bag, or what is Zach missing in his portfolio that he could help us do? So just talk about the topics you wish we were singing about. What are you missing? Okay, and we'll talk about at your table, and then make a list, and then, because I'm going to collect them, and then hopefully we can write some more songs.
So what aren't we singing about that we should be singing about?
And I'm going to write these down, by the way.
Yeah. What do you think?
What do you wish we were singing more of or differently?
Well, we had two. One was
Being a community.
Here, I'm going to give you the mic because this is going to be really important for everybody to hear. Okay, we're doing a little report back now. So
Two here. One was being a community of faith, and the other wasn't so much a topic as how we go about singing. And we thought it would be good to have more music that children and adults sing together. So there wasn't adult music and children's music separate, and it's part of being this community, which involves children, people of all ages, right, singing together.
can I say something?
You can say anything you want.
No, but I don't want to anyway, I totally agree with that. It's a really tricky thing and important to not just have the kids be separate. And there is a cute song they get to sing, and now we're going to do the stuff that really counts. Or, or that's exaggerating it. But anyway, finding things that work for everybody is a good challenge. So, yeah.
Well, and every time the children's choir has sung with this adult choir, it's just always been, I don't know about how the children feel about it, but the congregation feels very strongly about it, and the choir itself says, wow, that was awesome.
Yeah, it's a great win-win for everybody. Yeah. Okay, that was table number 1. Thank you. Who else wants to report back? What do you wish we were singing that maybe we're not, or we could do more of? Any other? Yeah.
Well, at this table.
I'll give you this. I'll give you the mic. It doesn't make you nervous.
At this table, there are 2 things. Sing about respect for nature, and then sing about respect for each other.
That's good.
Mix the new with the old. By that, we meant
Okay, like today's service, we do stuff, brand new stuff, out off the press. We sang familiar things. They're not exclusive of each other. Things get reset and reworked and a lot, and so it's like. But what always gets to me is know what you're singing about. If you sing a song and doesn't bring you happiness, sadness, sorrow, joy, hope, you probably did not pay attention to what you're singing. And there's so many things out there, whether it's social justice, whether it's what we get from Jesus Christ for our salvation, whether it's taking care of the earth. If we as people singing don't know, we've been blessed here in this congregation and in my life. I've had organists that understand that you don't play every verse exactly the same. That they try to tell the congregation, this is what you're singing. But the people have to listen to what the poetry is and what the message is. And we get it so many ways, visually, by sound, by somebody's voices, bringing the kids in like this. But so basically, it's just, there's so much there. I don't know what to tell you what to do because there's so much there to do.
Thanks, Jeff. I like the theme of mixing the new and the old with the concept of mixing the new and the old, the children and the adults together. There's kind of a theme with mixing new and old. Who else? What should we be singing
We
about?
also need to have respect for each other, and a lot of the, talk about sisters and brothers. So that's something that, after the election, we need to get reset into, we are brothers and sisters of each other. It's not just where you came from or what your financial responsibilities are. We just need to understand that we all are humans and we need to be respectful of each other and not just tear everybody down.
Yeah. It seems so huge in the country right now, doesn't it? Just this gigantic divide that we're all, anyway, we need a lot of help, and if music can start to address that, and I certainly agree with you. I wrote that one down too. Okay, what else should we be singing about, or could we be that's missing? What's missing? Oh, your table's still going, okay.
I just had another question.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of time.
One of the things that strikes me as must be difficult to do, but is important to do, is have a message for a service for a week, so that the songs that we sing, the hymns that we sing, and words that are spoken mesh to give a particular message.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, that thematic unity it carries a lot of power when it clicks into place just right. Yeah.
And would you say like this morning was an example of that, or are you kind of wishing it would be even stronger or different?
No, I was thinking in general. I wasn't thinking specifically about this morning, but I think it's an important thing, and I think it must be hard to sometimes pull it together. You get different people coming from different directions.
Yeah. Yeah. Others?
Table number 4.
Not to single you out.
Well, we were discussing the aspects. We were discussing the aspects of cooperation and the lack of what we see in our government in terms of perspective. One is over here, and whatever you have over there is not of interest to us in support. We look for, in the words here of contemplation, I would say looking for an attitude of cooperation instead of if you've got a good idea and his has got a bad idea, but they're parallel, find out where you can actually go together and actually work in that direction instead of just, well, yeah, and then go in another direction.
I just had a song idea. Something about either or.
Either
It's not
or.
this, it's not that, it's not this, it's not that. It's both. Or, something like that.
Yeah.
Somehow it's a collaboration.
Right, yeah.
Does it mean we
Cooperation,
have a
not
new
either
anthem
or is what I
Thursday
wrote down.
night?
What's
Does
that?
that mean we have a new anthem Thursday night?
Maybe.
Why wait that long?
You might want to take a nap.
That's true. My nieces are coming over this afternoon, so there will be no nap. Yeah.
Any other topics? I guess I would, oh yeah, here we go. Yeah.
This is not a question you asked, but I was thinking back in my own life, with regards to the politics you have about Vietnam, but what changed my view during that era was the folk singers, Pete Seegers, the Limelighters, Peter Paul Mary. That music I carried with me to this day. I'm not a musician, but I still have to sing it. But I think it stuck with me, and I don't know how you get from this room, you guys, to that national scene, but you can get there. You can have a huge impact.
Power of that music. Oh, the power of that time. I love that.
What did he say?
It's the power of the generations.
Help our music
With
video
Paul and Mary
go viral.
saying, and
That's
the
right.
songs and all that. Yeah.
It does need to go viral.
World War II, they have a bunch of.
Maybe that's the secret. We have a way to get around the world by the power of the internet.
Indeed.
Yep. No, it's true.
And we all know people who have home congregations elsewhere or who have connections with other congregations in this community, and we can send the video out to them and say, look what's possible, and spread the word among yourselves, and you have friends you can send it to and so forth. I don't expect that we're going to be #1 on the hit charts anytime soon, but it is a way to spread the message and spread the word.
Yeah.
In fact,
I'd like a raise, please. I'm doing such important work, I need a raise.
I didn't know you were getting paid. Well, I sent out to 7 different congregations myself, and we have connections through Bethel, or we have personal connections to other churches in this area. We know the ELCA, we should get them to be
I don't know if everybody could hear what you were saying. Do you want to repeat a little bit?
Yeah, just talking about using our networks to be able to spread the word about this piece, about the issue, about how doing this, singing about this issue with this particular piece has helped us to have a conversation, and that's possible in other communities too.
I wonder if Nordic Choir might be interested in this.
They're coming in January. Yeah. Well, is there anything lingering that anyone wants to share? Otherwise, we had planned to close with a song and go about our day.
I'm not quite done with that last topic.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I can give you grief. Well, no, I only want to say that I think it's important to me, because this is what I do, to keep thinking about what you wish we were singing, and tell Zach. Because I think we shouldn't sit by and think, oh yeah, well, I go to church and we sing this stuff, but now tomorrow I'm going to go and I'm working on this. There's a gigantic, I have a son with a disability, so I'm doing all sorts of work with disability rights and disability. Well, I want to sing about it on Sunday too. It's not like, okay, forget it, we'll sing Laudato, King Eternal, and then tomorrow I'm going to do this thing that I really care about. I want to have a both and, right? So I want to sing that, but I want to sing this stuff that matters to me. So I just want to empower you all to think about what's mattering, and tell Zach or Todd or somebody, hey, can't we find a song about this, or a prayer, or can I stand up and do a skit or something? Let's get what matters to us here, because it's not only our value on Monday, it's our value on Sunday too, or vice versa or something. So anyway, that's my preach.
One final thought, I think we're having trouble with church membership and church attendance everywhere.
Yeah.
And if we can sing about something that matters to people, maybe we'll get more people back.
Yep, that makes sense.
Why should I come to church?
Yeah, right. And we know, and those of us who are marinated in the story get value in the old songs, and that has meaning, but it doesn't for people that aren't a part of that story. And so what? How do we get both and, or whatever somebody said? That's anyway. So
there's another song, So What?
So what? So
no, I mean it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, that's right. So and then send those ideas to me, and then we can hatch some new stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And
That's kind of a dumb question. In sharing the production piece on media, is there any copyright concerns or anything, or can be shared freely, or?
Yep, there should be, and I don't know if there is yet. It should just have the proper copyright line in the video itself, for instance, which should say something like the text based on the prayer by the Pope with copyright. I can't remember. There's
Copyright the Vatican,
Italian something or Vatican something or
something,
other,
yeah.
and then it says words adapted with new words, Bret Hesla, and it says music, Bret Hesla and Zach Busch, copyright, blah, 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 blah. So that little business should be in there, and assuming that's in there, if that isn't in there, there's a little nervousness. But otherwise, send it out there. I always want to, if I wrote something, I kind of want to have a link to me in there, because it helps.
Yeah.
But thanks for asking that.
We acknowledged, of course, both of you, and the origin in the encyclical, but it doesn't have an actual copyright.
Yep, and if you look on this sheet, I can give you that.
Yeah, we'll
that
talk.
should be in there. It'd be important to get that in there, even though I know it maybe feels like late in the game, but yeah. Yep.
Should we sing?
Yeah. Do you want to sing a short song or a long song?
Short song.
Short song.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you again so much for coming to this day that we've had together. And when you get home, go online, go on to Bethel's YouTube channel and find the video and share it freely. And keep talking to me, keep talking to each other about this topic. It's really important. So thanks again, and we're going to close with singing. Bret's going to lead us, and thanks be to God.
See if you recognize this tune. And do it again. Yep, so the words are, all be stewards. So we go, all be stewards, all be stewards, all be stewards, all be stewards. And then we close with now 3 times on that last note. Now, now, now. We can do it with harmonies. You want to try with harmonies? Sure. Here we go. All be stewards. You got to fill them in. All be stewards.